All right. Good evening and welcome once again to the Growth Accelerator Masterclass. This has been quite a number of sessions where we come together to learn very, very specific topics that are aligned with your growth. We've had sessions on several topics from personal finance down to how to earn using social media management, down to growing from your essence, sales for business owners, just a number of sessions that have been carefully curated to make sure that as much as possible, every single person that is interested in growth is able to get the tools, the strategies, the exact things that they need to grow. And this evening, we are having a session that, like I said, I personally have been looking forward to an amazing session for every single person, all right, that is ready to not just grow a startup, right, but also grow it in a way that is properly structured. I was looking at starting out something this year, and that's when I knew that there's an entire concept called corporate governance that is a whole body of work in itself. So this session is one that even I myself am personally interested in. Right. So if you know someone that has a startup or that is about to start something, or if you yourself you're about to start something, this is the best place to be. This will be a proper masterclass, and we're all looking forward to learn. Now, for tonight, we have an amazing person, someone that has done this over and over again for people. Not just learning, but also implementing this across startups, teaching people how to do this the right way across different startups. She'll be telling us exactly how to set up this thing called corporate governance in a way that is growth driven, in a way that helps your business or your entire company, whatever it is you're putting together, to grow for the long term. These are some things that people that just get up and start something may not think about. But if your intention is long term growth, then corporate governance is key. It's something that you can't and should not miss. All right. So for the session this evening, joining me on stage would be the one and only Rosemont. You're welcome to the stage. Rosemont, it's so good to have you with us this evening. How are you doing?
Thank you very much. I'm doing amazing, amazing, amazing. It's awesome being here finally, right?
Yeah.
When I got the invite to be here, I was like, oh my God, it's so far away. Here we are. Time flies. It's exciting being here. Thank you, Stephen. And I appreciate the amazing work you're doing. We are your mentees. So thank you for having us.
I'm so glad to have you here, Rosemont. Both privately and publicly, in your presence and absence, I talk about the work you do, at least the parts of it that you share, and even beyond that, the things that you do, the ripple effect that it has on actual startups. Because these are actual businesses. These are businesses that their growth can translate into the growth of people that work with them, their staff members, and even
Yeah.
the solutions they provide in the marketplace can really translate into even much more things. So I see what you do as really important, and I truly celebrate you. I want to ask a question, before we go right into the session, right?
Okay.
When did you decide to go this startup path? I know the whole legal profession has like different things, right? There are people that are that's strictly into criminal law. There are people that are into property law and a lot of things. What influenced your decision to an extent focus a good amount of your attention on things around startups and things like that?
Okay, interesting. Thank you for that question, really, because it reminds me of, I would not use the word days of little beginning, but I think many eureka moments. So, first of all, I'm a lawyer. I have been so for the past decade. I started my practice in corporate commercial practice. I was privileged to work with a senior advocate of Nigeria for my first 4 years. So I
Oh
went to
wow.
courts. I did a lot of litigation, did a lot of things, right? But I got to a point where I became very disenchanted, I would say, with the court and judicial system. At a point, I needed a different experience. And I would say that I got my first opportunity to venture into tech when I was made an offer to become a co-founder in my friend's legal tech company. It was called Sealed App at the time. So, I mean, in the quest of jumping into that, I became a co-founder. So I legit founded my own startup. So, I mean, I knew the legal aspect as regards business development, building legal regulations, but I had to jump into the technical, the technical aspect of it. So, I mean,
Okay, so I am not
I
sure.
hope I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, you're back up. You're
I
back
hope
up.
you
I
can
can
hear
hear
me. I
you
hope
now.
it's
Yes,
better. Right.
yes.
So
Go on.
I jumped the broom from being a business lawyer to becoming a business founder. And I would say in 6 months, we ideated, we built our products. In less than 6 months, we had the product that was ready to go to the market. So everything that happened in between was a crash course of core entrepreneurship. And it was crazy, managing people, managing products, managing softwares, managing systems. So, I mean, it was very interesting. Then, unfortunately, God rest his soul, my founder passed on. I think about 2 months before our product launched. So I mean, I was determined that this company cannot fail in my hands. So I literally went beast mode in learning, right, and learning the art of literally building businesses and doing a lot of things. We won our first grants. We had a couple of awards. It was really good. And I would just say that at that point, I had a eureka moment that I would love to do this for business owners because I began to feel what business owners go to. Like I could feel the problem and the pain of
Yeah.
what it really takes to really be a business owner. So I mean, it was just one of the ways by which I got into it. So I didn't stumble on it. I think it was an intentional journey, but there were some circumstances that led to me now being even more passionate about the field. So let me summarize it. I have so much to say, but let me summarize so that I'm not speaking too much.
It's really profound. What what things can spur growth in specific directions. For you, it was
Yeah.
that of you starting up a company with someone, and then seeing the amount of gaps that you had, even though you're already a lawyer, the amount of gaps that still existed for you to be this, for you to get to a point where you're good enough when it comes to corporate governance. I think it's amazing. I'll allow you to teach in a minute. And I just want everyone, if you're live already, right, just remove every distraction, take out your pen, your paper, just get ready for what this session would be. I'll be at the back end, just allow you to teach. Just I think we can put up your slide. But what will happen now is a video is going to play, and then the next voice you'll be hearing will be the voice of Rosemont as she tells us how to set up a growth-driven corporate governance structure for startups. So I think we can get those that video
So I've
up
always
now.
wondered, how do seasons change? How do people move from being unsure about what they want, being unsure about who they are, being unsure about the kind of results? As a business owner, there are 3 areas of growth you need in your business. Number 1, you need growth in the number of new customers that are coming to buy from you, either getting your products or getting your services. Number 2, you need growth in your average order volume. That is the number of your products or services that one customer is getting. The more products and services that one customer gets, the more your business will grow. And number 3, you need growth in your recurrent customers. That is the people that buy from you over and over again. If your new customers are growing, your average order volume is growing, and your recurring customers are also growing, your business will definitely grow. At the Growth Accelerator Conference this year, starting from the 22nd to the 24th of August, you'll be getting the exact practical strategies that you can use to grow your business significantly. To be a part of this, go right now to growthaccelerator.africa and get a ticket for yourself. I look forward to seeing you there.
Okay, all right. So I think you are good to go.
Alrighty, I'm up. Hello, everyone. So, once again, thank you so much for having me. The next thing you're going to be seeing on my screen is my presentation for this amazing session. I would once again want to say a very big thank you to the organizers of this. Please, I know that I am streaming this in real time, so I'm glad that I have the opportunity to see what I'm doing. All right. So, first of all, welcome wherever you're joining us from. If you're watching this in real time and you have the opportunity to watch this later, I want to welcome you to this presentation. Just a short introduction. My name is Rosemont Phil-Othihiwa, and I am a corporate commercial attorney, been so for the past decade. And I currently run a consultancy for startups, helping them navigate through regulatory compliance. I would say legal shenanigans for short. And in my capacity, I currently mentor with Google for Startups Africa, where I help its accelerator program for business owners and founders who are seeking to scale beyond just the regular ABCs of doing business and are ready for business, I would say. So I'm going to be talking about how to set up a growth-driven corporate governance structure for startups. And I love, as always, to use data, because I think that if you do not know what is obtainable in your ecosystem, three things will happen. One, you would make decisions blindly. Two, you would waste time, money, a lot of focus and energy doing things that you should not do, particularly when it comes to very critical decision making. And three, you end up spending resources that you needed not have to spend, especially when you do not have the adequate information required. So the purpose of this masterclass is to basically help you understand, if you're a business owner watching this and you are still confused, you're like, oh, I have this idea, or possibly you are in your pre-idea phase, you don't even know what we are talking about, or you're here, you've been in business for some time, or you're here and you're a veteran. Whatever category you're in, you need to stay back and listen at least for the next 30 to 40 minutes, if I have that time. Now, I'm going to be talking about corporate governance and why it is important, particularly for tech startups, and what happens, how it is critical to implement internal controls. And I always like to start with a little bit of data. So let's take a look at some of the things I would like to share. Now, the startup system in Africa, I would say, is quite nascent. We might say, oh, we've been doing this for quite a while, but compared to other jurisdictions, possibly the UK and the US, where Silicon Valley is based, and a couple of other mature jurisdictions, the African startup ecosystem is still quite in its early stages. I would say not so early, but it's still in its early stages. As you can see on my screen, we basically have a lot of data points in terms of investment funding that has come into the African continent. This is for the first quarter of 2024, but in 2022 alone, and I'm going back for a reason, we had about $4.8 billion come into the African tech ecosystem, and Nigeria had about 60% of that chunk. Why? Because of the fact that we are in a nation that has the youngest youth population in the world. Data and statistics have it that in the next 20 to 30 years, everyone that's going to be on the continent of Africa, 60% of the residents in the continent of Africa is going to be lower than the age of 30. That means that Africa has such a very huge talent pipeline. The fact that there are no more, in quotes, ready to retire jobs available, you're going to have a lot of people going into entrepreneurship. So you're going to have more founders, you're going to have more business owners, you're going to have people creating solutions, you're going to have people who are going to be innovators and possibly going to be using a lot of technology to get things done. So coming back to the present, H1 2024, we had Nigeria have a cumulative sum of about $172 million coming to the Tech Africa system between January and July. Now, look at other continents. You see Egypt, you see South Africa, you see Kenya, and you realize that we are constantly increasing, even though there was a funding winter this year. But you can see that we basically have a continent that is ready for the future when it comes to startup investments. Now, let's also look at some sectors that actually, attracted a lot of this funding. So according to Africa, the big deal, I currently work with the team. We have logistics and the transport sector. Startups have raising about 218 million from that chunk, fintech about 186, and then of course you have agri-tech, which was about 74 million, health tech, retail, education services, and deep tech. And of course you recognize artificial intelligence has found a way to meander itself all through these areas. And you see that means that there is a lot of potential, there are a lot of possibilities. So let's go forward. Now, like I said, we have investors, and I need to explain why I'm coming from the investor angle. You may say, oh, we are doing corporate grants. Why are we talking funding? We are talking funding because where an organization does not have the structure that is required to be sustainable, what would happen? You would push away foreign direct investment. So you are not going to have the capacity to attract funds, which would definitely mean that your economy can't grow, because one of the ways investments come into an economy is actually to trigger economic growth. So the economic instability that you've been seeing recently, the high inflation, and the fact that funding has sort of reduced in the African continent is basically tied out to the fact that there's been a lot of issues, particularly when it comes to the sustainability of businesses, startups inclusive. right? So look at the trajectory and look at this roadmap. 2021 was a very low year. 2022, we had about 698 plus investors in the African ecosystem. And then fast forwarding back to this year, that number reduced almost by a whopping 40%. Now, when you look at these numbers, what does this really mean? Let's have a snapshot of this entire roadmap, and when you see where it comes to how the African ecosystem in itself has evolved over a period of time. There's definitely a funding decline, that's without a doubt, right? But at least we have been able to see that we have had about $780 million in total transaction value come into the African tech ecosystem. 66% of that has been equity, which means companies give shares in exchange for funding. Some they take debt, right? And you can see the top 4 countries. Nigeria used to be number 1. We've unfortunately dropped to number 2. Kenya with 32%, Nigeria with 23%, Egypt with 13%, and South Africa with 11%. Other founders are coming in, and we recently had 2 major funding into the African tech ecosystem between day before yesterday and today. So we've basically hit the $1 billion dollar mark when it comes to general startup investment that have come into the ecosystem for the longest of time, which is good news, right? So let's go to the real crux of the matter. What is corporate governance? Everywhere you go, you hear the word corporate governance, corporate governance. You're like, oh, this thing is just for the intelligent people. It's for big companies. It's a big word. And I have a lot of people ask me this question, and they say, why do we really need corporate governance? We are still really young. We are just starting. I will explain why. But let's define what corporate governance, first of all, is. Corporate governance simply is the rules, the practices, the policies, and the procedures that enable there to be growth, sustainability, productivity, and viability of a company. So that means anything you do that ensures that your company does well, whether financially or in terms of its operations or in terms of how it carries out its day-to-day, in terms of how it treats its employees, how it treats its shareholders, that is what you can call corporate governance. So when you're talking about corporate governance, you're talking about a system of rules. You are dealing with your management team. You're dealing with your shareholders. You are talking about regulations, how you comply with government regulations, the rules that govern your doing business. You are talking about how you make decisions within your company. You're talking about the policies that exist in your company, your whistleblowing policies, the policies that have to do with employee engagement, the contract you sign with third-party vendors. There are so many things that corporate governance encompasses, and we're going to break it down in a bit. So what is corporate governance? Basically, this refers to a system of rules and practices by which a company is directed and controlled. The most important thing that you have to remember is that when it comes to sustainable business development, you have to realize that you cannot think survival, you think legacy, because that is what corporate governance actually protects. Look at companies that have outlasted 10, 20, 30 years. You will realize that they had to embed a system and a structure in the building of its businesses. It is super critical. So whenever it comes to external regulatory compliance procedures, or whether it has to do with whatever it is, internal controls and all that, you realize that it becomes critical to have a system that guarantees your sustainability as a business, no matter the sector, no matter the industry you find yourself. And so the Institute for Corporate Governance, the Brazilian Institute for Corporate Governance, really just gave that interesting definition, and I thought to bring it out there. So why is it important? I have mentioned this before. Usually, if I was going to be seeing those who are interacting, and please, if you have a comment, please, I need to see your comments. Since we are live, I definitely will be able to see them and I can highlight them. I asked myself, why is this important? Now, raise your hand, your virtual hand, if you've ever been in a position where you've put money into a company and the company shut down. I don't want to talk about those that did MMM. I'm so sorry. You invested in a Ponzi and a pyramid scheme. You didn't invest in a company. But have you actually signed a contract with a company, and at the end of the day, the company did not deliver on its promise? There were possibly some reasons why that happened. Possibly there were some disclosures that were not made. Possibly there were some things that were not transparent. So there are a lot of things that have to do with how businesses are to remain sustainable. That is why it is important, because first of all, it creates a system of rules and practices that determines what's the best way to run this organization. Looking at the responsibilities we have to our board, our management, our shareholders, and the government. How do we run this, right? And then good sustainable business practices that leads to financial returns. And then, of course, regardless of whatever stage of business that you are in. You realize that corporate governance is a painkiller. There's, whenever I have a conversation with business owners and I say, this product that you're trying to build, can you tell me, by virtue of your research and development, are you building a painkiller or a vitamin? A vitamin is a nice to have. If I take my vitamin C drugs today, it's good. But what is a painkiller? I'm currently having a serious headache and I need something before something bad happens to me. You have to see corporate governance as that important. A lot of people say, oh, people would rather pay thousands of dollars to build an app, but they are not ready to pay or make that same sacrifice when it comes to protecting their companies, right? So we must always have the mindset that that's important. Another thing that corporate governance does is that it plays a role of showing transparency even within your organization, provides timely information. You have financial reports every quarter. You are able to understand who are those on your board that can possibly constitute some side of risk. What are some practices that are currently not proper when it comes to how you are dealing with your shareholders or your stakeholders? And then accountability. As a founder, as a business owner, as a builder, you realize that you constantly are going to have people watching what you're doing. Gone are the days where we would say, oh, things like corporate governance are only for companies that are listed on the US or on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. As small as you are, with just 2 founders, with just 2 shareholders, even just you need to ensure that you have the right things in place so that you're accountable and transparent. If not, you can never be attractive to an investor. Then let's talk about some other things. Integrity is so important, right? So by putting your organization first, you are placing your organization above personal gain. And then you have the courage to take action that's aligned with the company's ultimate benefits. Why? Because you are building for what? Remember what I said? You are building for legacy. And then, of course, there is no abuse of power. In our further slides, you will see some critical examples as to how poor corporate governance and abuse of power led to the crash of companies that had received millions of dollars in funding. I want to tell you this, and you need to pen this down. Receiving investment funding does not guarantee the success of your company. It doesn't. So let's look at some very interesting slides, right? Now, look at this interesting triangle, right? You have the mission. So I call this the 4 P's of corporate governance. The first P is the purpose. Now, follow me when I point up. Now, in terms of your vision, the purpose of your organization must be clear, top to bottom. Why do we exist? What is our vision? What is our mission? Because if you do not have a vision and a mission, you will deploy the wrong strategy in terms of delivering your business objectives. So the very first thing is not just about rules and regulations. The first P of corporate governance is the purpose and intent of your company's formation. That's the first thing to consider. And it is your purpose and your intent that leads you to start taking actions, developing projects, doing activities, going on different mandates, undertaking responsibilities, undertaking mandates. Those are the things you begin to do. So by the time you articulate your purpose and your intent, you move to the second P, which is your process and your projects. Because with a clear understanding of what your mission is and your vision is, you have the clarity of mind to now say, these are the projects that are going to fund this vision, fund this mission. And you cannot do that without consistency. And that is why consistency leads to the development of those projects and those processes. So your compliance, innovation, who are the leaders of this project? How are we going to execute it? Creating a design thinking process that looks at the organization and say, guys, this is what we're about to build. What are the things that we need to launch? What are the programs that we have to hold? So that's the next P. Now, the second P now has to do with performance. Because when you have a project, you have to deliver. So at this point, not only should your actions be consistent, they should also be predictable. You cannot say, oh, we are a marketing brand today. The next day, we are selling bags and shoes. Now, please don't get me wrong. There are many instances where you are going to have a situation that you are going to pivot as a business. So typical examples, the Samsung we all love, know, and appreciate today started as a grocery store, literally selling groceries. but they have become one of the premium technology companies in the world, selling motherboards and blue chips to almost every single electronic device. But what I'm saying is, in terms of the delivery of your business objectives, no matter the medium by which you deliver your product or your vision or your service and your project, you have to be predictable. People need to know what you are doing part-time. And that is why you would always have AGMs, annual general reports, right? Please, can you let me know if you can see me? Or maybe you can type in the comment section. Can anyone hear me? I think my video went off for a bit, but I think, let me see if I can get that back. Okay, can you see me? All right, great, fantastic. Yes, thank you. So you have to be predictable. You can't be sporadic when it comes to, that's why people, they're like, you need consistency, you need predictability for you to be able to perform. And then what's the next P, right? You cannot deliver your purpose, you cannot initiate projects, right? You cannot perform without people. That's the fourth P of corporate governance. At this point, you are dealing with human beings. And you know, human beings, they can be very interesting to work with. Possibly in the course of you being a first-time founder, or maybe as a second-time founder, you're possibly going to have to hire, you're going to have to get a CEO or a chief executive officer, or you possibly get a financial officer or a chief technical officer or something. So you have to build relationships. Everything flows into the other. And at this point, you have to go into the realm of development, because at this point, you are taking people from a thought that exists in the mind to something that is tangible, that people can either see, touch, feel, or experience. So at this point, your people management becomes very critical. You are dealing with them fairly, ethical conduct, equity, being able to build relationships. If you are not able to, if look at any organization in the world that has outlived 20 years, 30 years, Coca-Cola, for example, you would see that these things have been really embedded. The purpose is clear. They have their projects and their processes. They are performers. They have their people systems in place, whether in a macrocosm or in a greater context. So one of the things I always say, especially if I'm in a physical room, I would tell my viewers to say, I am not a side hustle. My business is not a side hustle. That's the very first mindset that you need to have if you are going to take this thing called sustaining a very viable business very seriously. You cannot think of yourself as a side hustle. You cannot. They'll tell you, oh, statistics, businesses fail in the first. You cannot be part of the statistics if you understand what I'm talking about, right? So there is the organizational part, there is the consistency, there's the predictability, there's the capacity to build people. That is why you see organizations will possibly always have employees come and go. But a lot of what makes people work in an organization for 20, 30 years? Have you asked yourself, oh, for those of you that even have parents or you have relatives that have worked in an organization for 20 years, do you think they would have been able to work in that organization for 20 years if there was no process, if there was no sustainability in the organization? I can spend so much time here, but let's move. So there is a corporate governance triangle, right? And if you don't remember anything that I'm going to be talking about today, look at this picture very well. And I always say this because I know I'm speaking to a mixed crowd, a mixed audience. Like I said, there's some people that are pre-business owners. You are your first to 3 years development stage. You need to remember these roles and these responsibilities that you have as a business owner. So I like to give this analogy. Think of your company as a car. As a business owner, as the founder of the company, as the CEO of the company, right? You are the driver. You are the one that is driving the company's vision, the mission. You are ensuring that every day, the daily operational activities of the company are being carried out. You are doing all that. By the time you incorporate your company, you are going to have in your organization people you will call shareholders. And the shareholders are the people who possibly will put in monies into your company. They will buy shares, you will give them shares. Whether an equity-based approach or a debt-based approach, one way or the other, they would invest in your company. Then your management includes you, your CFO, your CEO, your COO, anyone that is operating or leading a manager or a leadership role in your organization on a day-to-day basis, they are your management. And then your board are the people that you get as advisors. They come with their experiences, their years of experience, and they look with a deeper eye based on their experiences what your organization is doing. So let's look at the responsibilities that actually exist between the three of them. So like I said, think of your company as a car. You are the driver, all right? You are the driver, and the shareholders are the people that are your passengers. They want to see what you're doing. They want to know where you're going. They want to know where you're taking them to, right? Then your board are the manufacturers of the company. They are the manufacturers of the car. They are just sitting and they want to ensure that the manual that they gave you. Let me ask you, are you aware that your car has a manual? Your car, the car you drive. I know a lot of people, the way they learn how to drive these days, they just go to a driving school and press, mistake. I learned how to drive in 3 days, 3. So I'm not saying that that it's bad. But what I'm saying is that your car has a manual. If you read that manual, you will see some things about your car. You will learn about your car because there is a policy and there's a procedure and there's a principle for the car, just as you have policies and principles for your company. So your board are kind of like the manufacturers of the car, right? And they look out and they look at the critical decisions that you are making as a CEO. So let's look at these relationships, right? What's the relationship between you as a CEO or your management team and the shareholders? You must disclose to them. What is your company doing on a weekly basis, on a quarterly basis? If you have people who have put in monies in your company, do you give reports? If you don't, it's bad behavior. Start giving reports. Because your shareholders, what they give to you is they give you investment. Whether it's in cash, whether it's in shares, whether it's in whatever it is, right? And there was a relationship between your management and the board. Your board can be anyone who basically believes in your company and you're like, this person has 30 years experience in this industry, please come and give us advice. They can be advisory, but we'll talk about that later. They offer strategy, right? And they reward you with policy and advice. So the management gives them strategy. They appoint you. You're the one that will appoint your board members. They won't just catwalk into your company, all right? And then they award you or they give you policies, they give you advice. You know, when you're having internal challenges, they can come with their advice, right? I don't think you are too small to have a board. You can have 2 people as advisors. You can do an official appointment that in the course of our company growth, we acknowledge that you are advisors. We'll talk about that later. There was a responsibility between your shareholders, your investors, and your board. They would also appoint your board members, and there has to be communication and responsibility. So let's quickly go to the stages of different companies. So like I said, I am very aware. I'm speaking possibly to a diverse audience. So that means that there are different stages of growth where you are. And in the startup space, there are actually 4 stages. Some would say 5, which I would also agree. But for the purpose of this masterclass, there are 4 stages. What's the first stage? It's the stage of conception. You have this beautiful product or you have this idea in your mind. I meet a lot of founders who have ideas. I always say ideas are worth a dime a dozen. Until they're executed, they are just ideas. But at this point, beyond just thinking of, oh, I have this product that's going to solve this problem for mankind, start thinking about what the roles and the responsibilities of you and your founders will be. Identify what kind of contribution is this person going to bring into the company. Are they going to be first-time investors? Are they going to bring money? How much? How much are you willing to give them? Are you willing to give them 20% of your company in exchange for what exactly? Right? There has to be an alignment that, okay, you are coming in as my partners, you're coming in as my shareholders, you're coming in as my directors. These are our responsibilities, right? So like I said, there are different stages. So we are talking about the first stage, which is ideation, and then you talk about, of course, your validation, traction, and scaling. And we're going to talk about this. And what are the pillars? Strategy and partnerships. Who do we need to get to where we need to be? Who are the organizations that we should partner with? Who are the people? How do we deal with technology, right? So we're going to talk about all that. So this is checklist for your first stage. You need to align your founders' expectations in relation to the company. You need to hold conversations and discussions. And I always say this, founders, please start with the end in mind. Start what? With the end in mind. What happens if the relationship does not work out? What are we doing? Get legal counsel, right? What's the amount of contribution? You have to measure how is each partner going to, whenever I have the opportunity to advise founders and I have to be in a position where I have to draft co-founder agreements, I always establish clear KPIs. What are we doing? How are we achieving this? In what month? How are we vesting these shares? Is there a vesting schedule? Right? You have to do that. You have to keep your founders agreements very, very clear before you start sharing your idea up and down. Protect your intellectual property. I don't know how many of us watched this movie that that narrated the story of this man who invented the intermittent windshield wiper. The windshield wiper that we see today, that flicks rain, but not in a calculated time, was an invention by somebody who came to a company and wanted them to invest. And they took his idea, they stole his idea. I think he spent almost 20 something years of that matter in court. Took him his whole life to get judgment. So it's important that when you're sharing your idea, be discreet, but also be wise. Have agreements that protect that. And sometimes you can even register it in your name before you transfer it to whatever company that you will build in that process. The next stage is your validation. So you have your idea, you are working towards building it. So now you're about building your product, which is known as your MVP stage. So at this point, you've identified your business model. At this point, you possibly have drafted a business plan. You've done your R&D, your research. You already know that, okay, there exists a market for this product that I'm selling or this product that I'm building, right? You bring one or two people together and say, guys, we want to solve this problem, and then you possibly outsource or possibly get somebody to build a product, build something that people can access that product or that solution through. So at this point, your governance focus is what form of company organization are we bringing? Are we doing? Are we doing? Definitely, if you are here, you're thinking business name for a startup. I'm sorry for you. You're not ready to do business. You're thinking of a limited liability company as at the barest minimum. Are we registering in Nigeria alone? Are we going to be registering in the US? Are we going to be registering in the UK? How are we going to engage employees, right? So some of the things you're going to talk about is you have to register your company with whatever regulator is in charge at the time. So your articles of organization, your partners agreement, what's the process of market entry? You need to understand your figures. What's the data points? What's your USP, your unique selling point? What exactly is your roadmap? Have you done your business model canvas? Have you been able to articulate who are your key partners, your key resources? Who are your clients? Who are the people that are going to be used to deliver the services? Do you have a roadmap? You need to have that, right? At this point, you should be thinking, okay, we need somebody who is experienced in this field that can give us advice. Especially if you're in a very technical field like fintech, you need to get, at this point, you should be talking to your lawyers. You're talking to your financial advisors. You should not be making decisions because you watched, an inspiring motivational video. You need to get data. Because like I said at the beginning, data is what you use to make decisions. Then, of course, at this point, I should not be telling you, you should have registered your trademarks. You should be able to already say, okay, we have this idea and we already have, placed our claim with the trademarks and the Companies Affairs Commission. That's the minimum, right? So while we do that, we move to a traction stage. So at this point, as you build the MVP, so you do a soft launch, you announce, do whatever, ensure that, because I always say, people who are waiting for investors' money, that means that what you are telling me is that you do not have clients who can pay for your service. Because I think one of the greatest ways to be viable as a business is to have a customer that you are solving their problem and are paying you for it. If not, you are running an NGO. All right. So at this point, it is deemed that you have grown to a point where you can say you are in traction stage. And at this traction stage, you are defining the responsibilities of a person, because now you are taking expansion. You are trying to win customers. You're possibly maybe going beyond Lagos and you're having your products in other countries, in other states. So at this point, you really need an advisory board. So let's look at the difference between an advisory board and a proper board of directors. An advisory board, they just have a responsibility to just give you advice and they give you strategic direction. But your core board of directors, which I would advise, you don't necessarily need to start with a core board at your first to third year, or it depends on your growth, right? But I would say that you should start thinking about people that you can begin to co-opt as your board of directors properly, because they would have a responsibility for the organization. They would help with decision making, they would supervise, they will monitor, they will checkmate you as the CEO, so that when you are going left, they can bring you right and they can vote and all that. That's a different discussion. Then your checklist, you structure the decision-making process with levels of responsibility. At this point, you're having policies. By this time, you should have your organizational framework. You should know who is responsible to who and who is not responsible to who. Because possibly at this point, you are trying to raise funding, right? And your investors want to see that you have these documents. Your financial statement, we should not be begging you for it. Possibly you have a budget, you have a financial roadmap. These are key things that you're going to have, because even when you start talking to investors, you're going to need to have your term sheets that are going to explain how you value your company, in what exchange for shares are you giving. There's a lot of things to decide and a lot of things to discover. Then your scaling stage. So you say, oh, this company has gone to Kenya. This is the point where they are. At this point, like everything I've said, they've done it. But now what they are trying to do is ensure that they constantly keep complying with government regulations because they change. At this point, they already have their internal control policies. They have their whistleblowing policies. They have their employee policies. They have their employee stock option plan. They already know what to do. They have their risk management policies. They know that in this market you are playing, we've experienced this loss, we've experienced this risk. This is how we are mitigating those risks. That's a governance focus, right? So this is a checklist. I still have a lot of slides to go, right? But I mean, I don't know if I can be prompted to know how many minutes that I have left. Checklists. At this point, you should really just have a board. I mean, a proper one, right? Get independent audits. At this point, you are improving your investor relation because I believe that you possibly are having investors at this point. Ethical behavior. You should have rules of conduct, codes of conduct of everyone in your organization. Things that are illegal at this point, of course, you know. So you must also systematize. Thank you, Stephen. You must also systematize essential business processes, right? And create succession plans. Because at this point, possibly people had come into your organization earlier and they want to exit. That is why I would say before you start anything, end it. So think about if this relationship does not work, what's the exit plan? Get enough counsel and, of course, legal advice. Then, of course, for your board members checklist, like I mentioned, your board is responsible. They become very, very responsible for the decisions that are being made in the organization, right? So they must be fair and they must be accountable. They must be transparent and they must be responsible. So let's look at some corporate governance failures. I don't know as many of you that need to. You need to watch the Enron story. Enron was a company that happened that led to the crash. In fact, it led to one of the biggest inflations in American history because the company was seen as one of the highest profitable companies, and a lot of people put money into the company because it was listed on the share market, and then they crashed. Imagine the price of shares almost hitting $1 and then crashing to zero, right? So, I mean, it was really bad, and it actually led to the mortgage crisis in America in the 2000s. Right. In fact, we've not recovered till then. And it was based on, in fact, you can check the movie. It's on Netflix, right? Just check the Enron scandal. You just see movies that will come up and you can watch it. You can see that. In fact, so let me see if I can summarize maybe in a minute what this company experienced. They were supposed to be an energy company, right? And one of the things that they wanted to do was to tokenize the sale of energy products, like the way you buy tokens of light and these things that we're doing now. Well, at that time, of course, the technology had not yet developed, but they were very, very futuristic, and they sold a lot of lies to the public in terms of their progress. Lawyers were involved, banks were involved. In fact, Morgan Stanley was involved, an accounting auditing firm was involved in falsifying records, figures. In fact, people died, people lost their homes, because of the way people were rushing into the investment. In fact, one of the shareholders committed suicide. He just literally went into a car and shot himself because of the embarrassment and so it was a really big scandal and can never be forgotten in the history of capitalism, really, ever, right? And so you see that experience led to such a rude shock that people began to take scrutiny seriously because, I mean, companies do not die, especially when they reach some certain levels without some level of cohesion or collusion. Some other examples that we know in Nigeria, the fall of Patricia. Those of you that watch BBA, which I don't, they were the major sponsors of that program. But I mean, at some point, you know, a lot of people couldn't access the service. They couldn't access their funds. A lot of issues, backlash from customers. In fact, what they wanted to say was they wanted to tokenize some people's funds. People could not withdraw them, so people's monies were stuck. And then during COVID, I'm sure a lot of us heard of this story of 54 Gene, which raised $45 million. So guys, I'm telling you that raising money is not proof of company growth. Sometimes if you raise money too early, you can crash as a company. I'm telling you. So let's look at some of the stories, right? 54 Gene had 3 CEO changes. The company could not operate financially and shut down. There were a lot of internal struggles. There was no unity in terms of business making decisions. Financial things were being misappropriated, and there was a lot. And during COVID, everybody wanted to radically revolutionize the health sector, and they were really doing good at the beginning. But sometimes when you lose a P, remember, if you go back to our small circle, when you lose the vision and the mission of your organization, you get into problems like this. Nigeria is not the only one. Dash is a Ghanaian company. Shared eye-popping numbers. In fact, they claimed that they processed transactions of worth over $1 billion, right? In 5 months. I mean. And it was just clear that numbers were being so falsified. So the CEOs were suspended. Internal audits felt that they exaggerated the numbers, and they were fired and replaced. But that did not stop the crash of that company. Why? Because about $25 million was unaccounted for, and they raised money in the thousands, right? So another thing is that there were a lot of high overhead costs. Same thing with Payday. I'm sure we heard of the story of Payday, right? The company, they said that, the company was going to be acquired, but regardless of that, they could not, they were trying to expand so fast into different countries, change their business model, but it didn't work. And so everything you see here is investor. Where are the customers of these companies? Because it's not by going on LinkedIn and say, we are glad to announce we just raised. No. Are you solving a real problem that real people are paying for in real time? Right? So I've talked about Patricia. I've talked about disgruntled employees. In the most recent Tech Cabal publication that was released, I think 4 or 5 days ago, if I'm correct, right? In fact, on the caption, you will see it at the end of this slide. On the caption, you will see what they wrote: corporate governance, because it's no longer business as usual. Investors are putting their checks back in their pockets because they're like, these people, they're using our money to ball, right? So this is an example of a Nigerian fintech that's literally racked about ₦1 billion in debts. Just a loan company, right? And founders resigned, and then they quickly registered a new company. You see, there's some things that you cannot whitewash. It's bad, right? And then if you don't treat your employees properly, they will sue. They would go out. They would talk about you. And no company that gets into bad public light, most times they hardly recover, right? So there's been a lot of tech layoffs. A lot of companies have fired employees. I think the current data now is about 1,400 and something tech talent have been fired from different startups globally. I think maybe in Africa, if I'm correct, right? So there's a lot of layoffs. Why? Because there's a lot of mismanagement. Nobody knows who is responsible for what. Or the person who is responsible chooses not to be accountable. And the person who is responsible and accountable is not being transparent. Or the person who is responsible and accountable and transparent is not being fair. So you see, everything sort of goes into the other. So the governance toolkit by Digital Collective Africa, you can see the statement here. Founders should care about governance because it shapes investors' relationships, guides strategic decisions, manages risks, ensures accountability, facilitates compliance, attracts talent, and sets the stage for long-term success and exit strategies. Chikena, simple, that's the summary. So if you ask me, why do I need corporate governance? That is why. And Matthew Davis, who is the co-CEO of Renew Capital, had this to say. Founders, I'm nobody saying that if building a business, you will not fail. No. But let it be seen that you did all you did and you did properly. Right? So this was just an interview. I don't really need to read everything, but that's the point we're trying to make. There must be transparency in your business operations. It is so critical. So critical. So let's look at some successful stories. It's not all been doom and gloom, right? Like I said, I currently mentor with Google Black Founders Accelerator Program for Africa. And we've had quite successful startups who are really showing that they know what they are doing. So, we invest in them, I think to the tune of $150,000 non-dilutive equity-based funding. So Akoma Health was one of them that were selected. And based on their track record, we see that they are doing really good work. based on the fact that from the beginning, they had proper governance practices. So they had a sweet spot. Investors were strong. Do you know you can build your salary in such a way that investors will be the one offering you checks? You say, no, I don't want investor funding yet. Right? So that's very important. And of course, we all know Money Point, formerly Team Apt, right? These guys basically have built their company in such a way that with over 1,000 employees, we can see that they are gaining traction because they decided to do the business right from the beginning. I think one of the things that really, I would say, encourage or fascinate me or inspires me a lot about their growth is how they've been able to really form a close-knit relationship with their regulators. So you hardly hear of anything, and we hope it continues that way. As at the time where I shared this data point, I think they were about to process their pre-series C to about $50 million in funding, and I think they've been quite successful with it because they are backed by a lot of US venture capital organizations, despite the fact that they are being owned and owned by Nigerians. So who says good things can't come out of Nazareth? But we must do the right thing. I speak about this all the time, right? So let's talk about, I'm almost done. Corporate governance now as a tool for growth. So I've talked about what it is, what to think about. So how do you incorporate? How do you execute? Because that's the entire point of this entire conversation. If you don't know how to start, I'm just here and I'm preaching a good sermon, right? So what should you do? Okay. The very first thing is hire a compliance professional, especially if you don't have the time. There's a reason why we have compliance departments in organizations. Hire one. And think of it not as an expense, but an investment, because that is what it is. If you need to establish an advisory board or a board of directors, people that have run organizations or have been part of organizations before, and they know how the process goes, so that you don't have to repeat a mistake twice. Then get independent auditors to take a look at your organization and ensure that you are constantly in conversation with your stakeholders, your shareholders, your directors. You're having regular meetings. You're not a one-man army. Then you need conduct for everything. Ethical conduct. No matter how successful a business is, if you have a very bad story against a founder, it can cause a lot of aspersion and it can reduce your shareholder value. Especially if in the course of raising funds, one of your means of exit is to actually possibly, list on an IPO or be acquired or be bought over or merge with an organization or have a management buyout. Whatever it is you choose to do in terms of how your organization is going to come to an end, you have to have ethical behavior and you have to systematize your processes. If somebody leaves your organization should not feel it. If they do, then you have a lot of work to do. Of course, I understand if your business is a bit younger, but as you begin to evolve, you cannot put everything on one person. You have to have a process that even if that person leaves, there is a document that if somebody comes into that role, they can start with something. So you need to systematize business processes and let there be formal processes for review, especially in terms of your strategy, right? Have your code of conduct. For those of you that deal with a lot of client data, you need to have a data compliance protection, a data protection compliance officer within your organization or an organization. Especially if you deal in very critical, subjects. You need to know that you have regulators that are waiting for you to file some things. I should not be telling you now if you're a company organization and you have not filed your annual returns, or you are not filing, you are not regulating you are not updating your terms and policies, your conditions of use. So get a compliance professional if this is too much. But start, know what is required. Then risk management and planning. Being able to have a sustainable business deals with a lot with forecasting risk. Being able to look at risks and being able to say, okay, if this happens to us, this is what we will do. There's only so much you can anticipate, but at least the ones you can, start from there. Right? So let me move to the next slide. Protect your intellectual property. Always review it. So for those of you that are building software, do you have a software development agreement signed? What does it say? Who owns the product last? Is it them? Is it you? Is it the company? I'll leave that question to you. Then let there be strategy for handing over and succession planning. And of course, if you have investors, keep them involved. Always ensure that you are moving from compliance to having a competitive advantage. You should not be catching up, running to catch up. The regulation should be running to catch up with you. So you must always think long term and incorporate risk management into your organization. Have timetables, have calendars. Okay, today, what are the new regulations that guide us? Oh, you need to get that. So the report I was talking about, the state of tech in Africa by Tech Cabal, in fact, if you look at the report, if you read the report, they wrote corporate governance. I recommend, please go to their website and download the file. In fact, on this slide, there's a link to the report, which I just put directly, but just go and Google it. Tech about state of tech in Africa, state of tech in Africa report, H1 2024. You would see this document. Clear. It was released 3 days ago, corporate governance. So, I mean, it's one of the best times to have actually, spoken about this. So, that being said, that brings me to the end of my presentation. I don't know if you have questions, but I would say a very big thank you to the team. I know that this was short, but I mean, we're pressed for time, so I wouldn't want to overstay. I could keep on talking, but thank you very much for having me. And I think I would stop sharing my screen now. And I want to say thank you to everyone. I hope this was helpful for you. I know that this was very impactful for you as it was for me. So thank you very much. And yeah, that's it from me. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you so much, Rosemont. This was, I'm seeing a lot of comments. See if you know you're a part of this, just drop a comment about how the session was for you. I was at the back end because this is one session I was looking forward to. We'll talk about this back end. The word corporate governance came up. I'm like, oh, okay, what is this? I had to literally pause everything I needed to do because I was going to take up a co-founder, right? And I'm trying to figure out exactly who I should take up as a co-founder. What do I need to check? What do I need to find out? How do I even choose a co-founder? What does it even mean to have a co-founder? And I was checking for resources on these things, and I'm like, okay, this is a session that everybody that wants to not just have a small business, but a business that is even funding ready, a business that is able to scale over a period of time and have that longevity. This is something that they need to learn. And I want to say a very big thank you to you for taking this session. I'm seeing some comments coming up. I'm seeing Samuel saying thank you, Victor, Deborah, just a lot of comments coming up about how the session was. Thank you so much, Rosemont, for doing this session with us, right? I don't know, I'll just probably say something. I know that this session is a part of the conference itself. It's like a masterclass of the conference itself, right? But from your story, the one you shared at the beginning, and some of the things you've shared so far, I would literally see that there's been a lot of growth in your journey. There's been a lot of things in the things that you do. I want to ask, what role has attending events, right, been a part of conferences? Because there are some people that are still trying to make a decision if they join the Growth Accelerator conference or not, right? I want to ask what that has been like for you, being a part of events, the relationship building that you've gotten from there, and things like that. If you have to talk to someone that is currently trying to make a decision, if they should be a part of the conference coming up or not, what will you tell that person?
I mean, in fact, one thing conferences do is that they expose you to a realm of possibilities. You see people who are living the life you've always wanted, possibly are getting the results that you desire, and it's a hack. In fact, it's a growth hack. It's a growth hack. When you talk about growth hacks, there are many ways to enter into a new season. It's by either trying to do it by yourself or actually leveraging on the experiences of people who are already there, right? So I would say that, it's helped me a lot. In fact, I think one of the when I was trying to, I was in a season in my life where I was really, really confused. Oh, what am I going to do? This is this, that. It took one event I attended to know exactly where I found myself. And typical example, right? When I was going to come into tech, I attended the Justice Innovation in Law pitchathon, where the Kingdom of the Netherlands, they were giving some awards and grants to lawyers who were solving justice problems using technology. Before then, I'd never attended any of such events. But I mean, in 2018, this happened in 2018, I attended that event and I suddenly knew what I wanted to do. And then throwing forward to, I would say 4 or 5 years later, I am being invited by the same consulate as a legal expert to give advice on a particular thing. If you check my Instagram, you will see one of the I pinned one of the videos. So that in itself just tells me that there is a way you desire growth, that if you position yourself and you pay the right price, that growth will happen. It's only a matter of time. So please, if you're here and you're considering joining this growth accelerator, what are you? Even Mr. Steven knows. I'm going to sleep in his house possibly the night before, so that I can make it there. Because the people who are coming, I have seen them, I know them, I'm privileged to have relationship with few of them. They have been personal mentors to me. So please, I think it's an event that should not be missed. I know they say, oh, there's conference fatigue. You cannot be fatigued in this one, you'll be challenged.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's no other opportunity, or there's no other excuse, but you have to grow. So those are my thoughts about it, really. And I mean this very seriously. Yeah.
Thank you so much. See, it's very profound. I'm very grateful. I will actually personally go through this session, and the good thing is that those that get tickets for the conference would actually have a time-based access to review this masterclass, because there's some things you shared that people may not really get at the first class, right? But those that are like participants for the conference, they will get the opportunity to watch it over and over again. Some quotes are already coming out. I'll send that to you on WhatsApp, but I'll have to let you know this is already past live. So thank you so much, everyone, for this. Now, if someone wants to connect with you, I know that your handle will come up anytime from now, but if someone wants to connect with you or get a resource from you, is there anything that you would want to share? Probably apart from your Instagram handle is up already, but is there any other way you wanted to connect with you? Any resource apart from the ones you've recommended, of course, that people can get from personally?
My LinkedIn, that's where you will find me. Like, in fact, I'm more consistent on my LinkedIn than I am on my WhatsApp. So just go to my LinkedIn and send me a message. I will see it in real time. Trust me, I can check that app 300 times a day. So just go to my LinkedIn, my full name, send me a connection request. I always respond. I always accept.
Perfect. So go to LinkedIn, Rosemont Phil-Othihiwa. Did I get that pronunciation right? I'm not sure I got it.
Yes, you did. You got it. Even judges mispronounce my name, so you did well. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. So the full name, Rosemont Phil-Othihiwa on LinkedIn. Go there, send just follow, and then you can always send a DM in case you have a non-billable question that you want to ask, and I'm sure that Rosemont will be able to answer that. Thank you for being a part of this program. I'm personally grateful.
Definitely.
I'll get to after now, but thank you so much.
We'll
get to talk after now. All right, guys, this was the masterclass with Rosemont on how to set up a growth-driven corporate governance structure for startups. Now, sorry, I think my team will bring up that link for those that want to get tickets. See, guys. First of all, this masterclass was an amazing one. We all know that. And it's something that I think you need to listen to over and over again. Those that have tickets already, there are some of you, I'm seeing some names here. I'm seeing Oyinye, for example. I know Oyinye has a ticket already. I know some of you, if you have a ticket already, just drop a comment in the chat box. Let me know that you have your ticket already. Some of you already have your ticket, your growth ticket, you're ready for the conference. But then those of you that have not, if you have not gotten that yet, I would recommend that as fast as possible, go to growthaccelerator.africa and get a ticket for yourself. See, it's going to be an amazing session. We have a lot of speakers that have been put together to make sure that every aspect of growth is being talked about. So we have Elisha Maman, who is my mentor. Elisha Maman will be coming all the way from Kaduna. He'll be coming all the way from Kaduna for this session. We have Chioma Ifa and Eze that will be speaking at the conference. We have Sadiq Cash. We'll be talking about how you can set up a cash flow system for yourself at the conference. We have Olushola Olale, amazing person. He'll be speaking about business growth, how to grow your business. I'll be speaking also on personal growth metrics, how to design your personal growth. See, some people repeat their years. You are living the same year you live in 2021 over and over and over again. You don't know, you've not yet designed a growth system for yourself. I'll be talking about how you can design a growth system for yourself that you can implement. We have Hauma Wogu. Hauma is an amazing person when it comes to LinkedIn. If you're in career year, Hauma will be teaching you how to grow your how to achieve professional growth using LinkedIn. She has over 110K followers on LinkedIn, and she has been doing this for people in different nations as well. I think currently over 30 nations of the world have been affected by Helma's teaching about LinkedIn. You have to learn from her. She'll be there in person at the conference. We have Abraham Orope, who is also my friend and an amazing business coach, a global business coach, actually. Today, Abraham actually celebrated 1 year of being is certified by the UK chapter of the Project Management Institute. He's a global person. So Abraham will be there in person. We have Funso Iboye, amazing person when it comes to business, the founder of 528. She'll be there in person. We have Ada Armstrong, the founder of Career Space Africa. Ada Armstrong is an amazing person when it comes to career. She'll be talking about systems for career growth at the conference. If you're a career person, you should be there. And we have Jane Omar that will be speaking about how to use mentorship as a system for growth. See, this is like a buffet. You know the way you go to a buffet and you just choose what you want to eat, right? So this is like a buffet, and all you have to do is just select what you want. All right. So make sure that you get in for this session. And the thing is that there's going to be a price increase coming up on the 1st of August, right? So for the 1st of August, the ticket price will actually increase. So the standard ticket that is currently 10,000 naira will become 15,000 naira. The premium ticket that is currently 15,000 naira will become 20,000 naira. The executive ticket that is currently 35,000 naira will be the platinum access ticket that is currently 60,000 naira will become 75,000 naira. See, this is the cheapest amount you will pay to listen to all these people at the same time. All these people at the same time, this is the least amount you can pay. So what do you need to do right now? Go to growthaccelerator.africa. I can see some comments coming in. Mercy says, I have mine already. Yes, so Mercy already has her ticket. Some of you already have yours. If you have your ticket, let me know in the chat box. I'm sure he has hers already too. Some of you have tickets. So Mary says they have a lot of questions. Mary, Rosemont will be physically at the conference. So if you want to connect with her, the conference is one of the best ways to reach her in person, and then just start building that relationship with her so you can ask the questions that you want to ask, right? So try your best to be at the conference. So yeah, that's it for tonight, guys. Thank you so much. I'm going to play a video, and then we will be done with the session for today. We're going to queue 2 videos up. I think my team will queue 2 videos up, the 2 of them, so one after the other, and then we're going to end the live stream. But thank you for being a part of the session tonight. Get your ticket at growthaccelerator.africa, and I will end with this: that growth will cost you, but not growing will cost you more. Choose growth, decide to growth at all times. Thank you, and have a good night.
So I've always wondered, how do seasons change? How do people move from being unsure about what they want, being unsure about who they are, being unsure about the kind of results they can produce, to becoming people that are of well-renowned? And I noticed something, that every transformation starts with a particular quality of information. Think about it. As a student, you enter into school, 100 level, you're literally just clueless about what you want to become. You want to become a doctor, but you're still learning the basics of everything. And then 7 years down the line, you're able to perform activities that before then you had no clue about. Why? Because you were exposed to a certain kind of information. And that's why the source of information is a major factor when it comes to becoming better as a person. At the Growth Accelerator Conference this year, you'll be getting high quality information from people that have not only studied on these things, but have acted on it over time and gotten results. You'll be learning how to grow yourself as a person. You'll be learning how to grow your business and how to grow your career. If this is what you want, go right now to growthaccelerator.africa and get a ticket for yourself. I will see you there. As a business owner, there are 3 areas of growth you need in your business. Number 1, you need growth in the number of new customers that are coming to buy from you, either getting your products or getting your services. Number 2, you need growth in your average order volume. That is the number of your products or services that one customer is getting. The more products and services that one customer gets, the more your business will grow. And number three, you need growth in your recurrent customers. That is the people that buy from you over and over again. If your new customers are growing, your average order volume is growing, and your recurring customers are also growing, your business will definitely grow. At the Growth Accelerator Conference this year, starting from the 22nd to the 24th of August, you'll be getting the exact practical strategies that you can use to grow your business significantly. To be a part of this, go right now to growthaccelerator.africa and get a ticket for yourself. I look forward to seeing you there.
I'm listening to you. That's why. Like sometimes when you're talking,